Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started here. I think we've got just under 200 online and potentially some more coming, but I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. So thank you all for taking the time to attend the parent meeting tonight. As we get started, just want to recognize that we stand on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. So welcome everybody to the 2020-2021 season. We're finally here. We're so excited to have players on the ice. The delivery of minor hockey is currently and will continue to be and feel different than what we are traditionally used to. Patience and flexibility are the order of the day as COVID-19 continues to impact our world. Plans are fluid, and changes often occur weekly, if not daily. There will be lots of communication this season with any required updates and changes. Please take the time to read your emails. There will be more of them, and they will have the most current information. If you have any questions at all or need clarification on something, please just ask. We all need to work together this season and help each other in order for hockey to occur. I can't stress enough that in order to continue to provide hockey programming, including gameplay, we must
You've gone muted, Chantel.
Sorry about that. So I'm not sure where I went muted, but we must follow directives from our governing bodies, Hockey Canada, BC Hockey, Pacific Coast, as well as the requirements laid out by Via Sport, the provincial health officer, and our facilities. And our facilities all have different protocols. T-Birds is not making the rules in these situations, but we absolutely have to follow them. If we choose not to, facilities can cancel our contracts, player insurance can be voided, and perhaps more importantly, other people could become very ill. One key piece this year is that if anyone, and I mean anyone, is feeling ill, they need to stay at home. This will ensure the least number of people end up getting sick. There is a clear process on what is expected if someone is not feeling well, which we will take you through in detail later on in the meeting. And just a bit back to the facilities, we have had a couple of instances recently. So the vast majority of our facilities right now are not allowing spectators. We need to respect that. We did receive a note earlier today that we had some of our people sneaking in to watch the kids play. And I get it. We all want to see our kids play. At this point in time, though, we have to respect that rule or we risk not being able to use the facility at all. And they have flagged that with us. Anyways, finding a pathway to get our kids back to hockey safely has not been a small task. There has been unprecedented collaboration within our communities and with our governing bodies. We are very excited to safely get our players back to hockey, and we welcome all of you to a new and most importantly, safe season. And I'll throw it over to, I think, Bruce, you're going to talk about this.
Sorry about the facilities themselves. These are views of, hi, I'm Bruce Gregg. I'm the director of Rep Hockey. For those of you who haven't been able to see inside, this is what the venues look like. The top left hand corner is Richmond Oval. The bottom right is the UBC rink. They are very rigorous in bringing people in. I've experienced the Richmond Oval. Everyone assembles outside. You do your health checks. We're going to go over this in detail. People have walked in as a safety. I was in the facility at the time. They have set it up so that everyone is socially distanced. The players come in and have specific spots to sit in. Their equipment is left where it's, you can see it is around in various separated areas. There is no change rooms anymore whatsoever. The changing area is right beside the rink, and then you step onto the ice and step off to the ice and leave the building through a different pathway. So if you're experiencing this, you'll drop your player off at the inside gate door, and then they'll come around and appear in the middle of the parking lot at the other end as they let them out of the building. You have to be on time, you have to check in, and if you happen to be late, only by the grace of the team leaving somebody there to maybe help you out, or the facility to let you in, you are not allowed to get in otherwise. So it's a very rigorous process. It's a very impressively thought through process, and you know, gives you a certain confidence that everyone has gone through all the details to make sure that all the facilities are going to be safe for the kids to work in as best as you can. So be careful, be respectful. There's a lot of people who are working to make this work for us. Sportsmanship starts at the beginning, and it begins with all of us. We have some videos that you could watch. We're not going to play them for you here because you potentially maybe seen them, but if you want to go to these links, definitely go and check them out. They're very interesting and slightly inspirational as to what you can do to look at the perspective from the players, from the parents, and from the game itself. So sportsmanship is so important. And the one thing that we're really interested in this year with all of the challenges going on is everyone has a positive experience. Everyone is going to be, as best they can, going to grow and get up what they can from these experiences. What does Hockey Canada expect? We expect everybody to be focusing on the kids. We expect everybody to make sure that they have the best experience possible. We hold to high expectations, but not too high to be reasonable. We want a balance between hockey and life. In these days, it's even harder, but hockey is important, but so is making sure that they have a complete balanced life. And the main thing that we're also concerned about or interested in is a positive model and responsible behavior. Sports competition is such a great sport, hockey, and we can learn so much from it. The kids can grow so much with it. And if everyone is being respectful and positive, we can make sure that everyone's going to be as successful as possible. And sportsmanship starts in the stands, and it starts with all of the people who are going to be supporting their players and making sure the players are successful and being respectful of the other people in the stands as well. Next. What we're looking for is a fun, safe, positive environment. Learn to be a team player, making lifelong friends, and learn to be a gracious winner and loser, but mostly making sure that everybody is treated with respect on the other team and your team and all of the officials around it. Everyone is working there and doing their best to make all the players and all the people have a great experience and fun. Coaches and parents, we expect the parent to coach relationship to be that you respect the coach's duties, goals, and responsibilities. Everyone's working to do their best for the players and everyone else. Always be positive and respectful when communicating with the coaches. The coaches are there to listen and understand what you have to say, but let the coaches coach. They are getting training. They're the ones that are up to speed with all the latest things that we want them to do and what the association wants them to do and what hockey expects them to do. And if there are situations where you feel that you are concerned, upset, apply the 24-hour rule. And this is true for anybody, anywhere within the organization. If there's a confrontation, stop and just say, we're going to talk about this in 24 hours and we will take some time away from it and invoke that rule. It's my right, it's your right to say, look, 24 hours, let's just step away and then we can come back and then we can actually have better perspective on it. So that's really, really important. And so many times it's worked really great. The parent-to-parent relationship, we want you to foster respect and responsibility. Again, in the heat of the moment, respect and responsible behavior first. Model behavior for the players because they're going to take from us what we show them that we're doing. And the onus is on all players to act in preventing unacceptable conduct. If you see something going on, you should say something. And if you see anything going on, talk to the managers, talk to the coaches, talk to us. We are very concerned that everyone has a positive experience. And if there's people being difficult, that you feel are not being respectful or not fulfilling the code of conduct, we want to understand that so we can actually resolve the situation, deal with it, whatever is necessary. The onus is on everyone to prevent unacceptable conduct. Next. And most importantly, no parents in the rinks. I think, am I speaking to this? Yep. We recognize that as a parent, you might not be able to watch your kid at practice, or it's hard, but we have to do it under very strict obligations to follow the rules of the rinks. We can so easily be barred from these facilities because they have requirements that they have that we need to respect. There have been several incidents at the UBC rink which simply cannot happen. We understand that parents have snuck in. We also have situations where facilities have blocked off certain areas for safety reasons. Child using a washroom is blocked off and parents sneaking in. They could stop us from using the facility. We cannot use that ice anymore. And it's so important that everybody respects it and plays on the same side. And everybody just is on watch all the time to make sure none of this behavior goes on. If you see anything going on, just tell us about it in the facility so we make sure that it doesn't happen anymore. The Code of Conduct. The PCHA mission statement promotes sportsmanship, fair competition development, all skill levels. We expect the behavior to be representative of the Thunderbirds. We talk about being a Thunderbird, and being a Thunderbird, we believe, is actually an important thing to manifest. It's to create a climate where the child can play in a safe environment, the coaches and team officials are supported, and they acknowledge the code of conduct upon registration, and we just all want to be a positive role model for all the kids and other players and other associations. I would hope that we would be respected throughout the hockey environment we work with as being people who actually have a positive environment that we work within. Next. Thunderbirds Code of Conduct for parent support. Ensure that to the best of your ability that your child abides by the rules of hockey, policies of the Thunderbirds, and the principles of good sportsmanship. That's your role to try and give to your player. Ensure that your child respects the teammates, coaches, team officials, referees, opponents. Everyone that's involved in hockey should be treated with respect, and it's not a confrontational game, it's a game of competition and positive support. Ensure to the best of your ability that your child conducts himself in this manner and minimizes the risk of injury, physical, psychological, to him and herself, and refrain absolutely from making any derogatory comments on other individuals' race, ethnic origin, color, religion, gender, and or sexual orientation. This is so important, and we are so concerned about that. This is maintained at all times. We have a zero tolerance for any type of activity like this. In the gameplay, if a referee hears that there is some sort of racial slur like this going on, it is one of the most severe penalties that a player can receive. So we need to make sure that we don't allow any of this to occur. We need to make sure the kids are supervised and watched all the time to make sure it can't occur, and make sure if it does occur, we deal with it as quickly as possible and deal with it. Some of the kids don't really understand it, but again, modeling, we have to make sure that they understand what's going on to the best of our ability to have that happen. We need to ensure that the supporters are all refrain from criticism of the coaches, referees, teammates, negative comments from the stands at officials and things like that. That is just not acceptable. You can be concerned, but you don't go out and verbalize it and yell and shout. It's going to be difficult this year because you're not going to be allowed in the arenas, but so often we can end up with trying to make negative comments. We need to be positive supporters of our kids. Ensure that everybody's directing comments, insulting, intimidating, humiliating remarks, malicious. Read this in detail. We're going to be looking at this very critically, and we should hold each other to account for this. So make sure that any criticism is respectful and make sure that it goes through channels. There's a communications matrix for if you've got concerns that you should follow. Managers, coaches are all your first line of contact if you're a parent, to have a conversation with them, and then we can take it and escalate if necessary. Familiarize yourself with and abide by the policies and procedures of Vancouver Thunderbirds. If we all have a positive environment, if we all take our concerns from the parent to the team manager, coach, to the division ambassadors, we can then escalate through and make sure that all of your concerns are dealt with appropriately and balanced in a correct way. One of the things that we have in this communications matrix is to make sure that you follow this process, because if you jump by them, if you jump right to PCHA, for example, PCHA will fine us because we're not dealing with things at an association level appropriately. So please be respectful of these areas and make sure that they are addressed within the team and the association first. And we are very concerned about making sure that this communications are open. Most of the time when we run into problems, it's because people don't say something and it just escalates. So it's best that you get this stuff to people as quickly as possible to share the information. Don't talk to each other about these things and expect a resolution. Talk to us and we'll assist you. And the Thunderbirds hockey policies are on the website. They're very extensive, they're very detailed. We have constantly upgrading and making sure that they're consistent and up to date with everything that's going on. We have one of the board members, Peter Tulinski, who is in charge of making sure all these things are up to date. And he does a fabulous job of making sure that all the stuff that we have as policy and procedures are consistent and fair and discussed at the board and made sure that we are fully rounded around what we're trying to do and accomplish within hockey. Particularly around COVID, for example, there's many changes that have occurred. Okay, and I'll throw this over to Peter now.
Thanks, Bruce. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. My name is Peter Tulinski. I'm the Director of Policy for Thunderbirds, as well as the Associate Director of Recreational Division. So Bruce pointed you to our policy page. It's a very thrilling page, hours and hours of wonderful reading and excitement. But today we want to just talk to you and highlight what we're calling our COVID impact policy, but basically it's our 2020-2021 fly by the seat of our pants policy, where we've been trying to make decisions weekly on making sure that we get everyone out on the ice in a season that makes sense in the current environment. So what we did was we came up, rather than going into all of our policies and trying to find issues with or changes that we had to make to all of our policies, we've implemented a catch-all that will basically explain how this season's going to work. We started with our like airline ticket refund policy concept of what if we don't have a season, what if we do have a season. We've gotten past that. We still do have a concept built in now that if for some reason our season is shut down, that the board has authorization to issue prorated refunds. And there's also part of that policy also speaks to if a player needs to miss ice because of a mandated self-isolation or quarantine. So you can see that in the policy. So I'm just going to highlight some of the other items here that are noteworthy. We did identify in this new policy a framework for our recreational balancing process, as well as our rep trial process and appeal process. The summary of those processes is that they're going to be a little shorter, they're going to be abbreviated, and they're not going to be exactly as they've gone in previous seasons, but we're going to try our best to continue to have as robust a procedure as we can in light of our timing and rink requirements. And we'll talk a little bit more after on our breakout sessions about if you have questions about the balancing process for recreational or the rep tryout process, those breakout sessions after this main session, you can ask those questions. Applicable to everyone in our general policies that have changed is that we do not expect there to be any affiliation this year between teams. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with goaltenders, but we do not expect there to be any affiliation between teams for skaters. There's also going to be limited tournaments, if all, and certainly we don't expect there to be travel to the United States. But I also wanted to take 2 minutes to talk about what we're calling our return to play policy. We've already had a number of questions and a few instances of players having colds and parents asking us, what should we be doing? So notwithstanding that there have been numerous directives from Hockey Canada to BC Hockey to PCHA to us, what's interesting is that when we finally have been facing these issues, we didn't necessarily have all the information we needed. So thank you, Tanya, who did a lot of work last week to get some information from some health authorities here and in BC, as well as consulting with BC Hockey and Hockey Canada. So the policy is now written, and you can find it on the website. It's Section 8 of our COVID-19 impact policy. All of the hockey safeties on each team will be aware, and they basically are the responsible party for each team or group to manage our return to play policy, just like a broken leg or a concussion. This falls on the safety to assist the head coach in these matters. As Chantel said earlier tonight, if a player or staff member is feeling ill whatsoever, do not come to the rink. If they are showing any symptoms of COVID-19, they must take a COVID-19 test. If the COVID-19 test is positive, they need to stay home for at least 10 days from the start of symptoms, and they must follow public health instructions. If the public health instructions are to stay home for longer than 10 days, we would ask that you notify the safety on your team of those circumstances. Again, you cannot come back to the rink or to any Thunderbird event until you are 100% symptom-free. So that overrides any mandated period of isolation or of staying away from Thunderbirds. If your COVID-19 test is negative, again, you must stay home until you're 100% symptom-free. The COVID-19 test result will serve as your doctor's note. That must be shown to your safety in order to return to play. If there are other circumstances where for some reason you are unable to get the results of your COVID-19 test, you must have a physician's note authorizing the player to return to play. So that's scenario 1. Scenario 2 is a little more complicated, and this comes into play where someone has been told, a team official or player has been told to self-isolate by a health authority because of contact with someone who had COVID-19. Once you've been told to self-isolate, again, even though you're showing no symptoms, you cannot attend any Vancouver Thunderbird event, and you must notify your safety that you've been told to self-isolate. If you do not have symptoms of COVID-19, you can return to play after 14 days of the exposure, excuse me. You don't require a note to return to play, but you must inform your group of the start date. If symptoms show up, if you develop any symptoms while you are in self-isolation, it's like return to the top. You must take a COVID-19 test, and then because you've been told to self-isolate, the duration of the time with which you must stay away from Thunderbirds varies. If you're positive, then you have the 10-day period that runs from the date that you started symptoms. And again, you follow health instructions. If those health instructions require you to stay home longer than 10 days from the day you develop symptoms, then you must do so and you must inform your team. If your COVID-19 test is negative, you have to stay home for the full 14 days. And that's because apparently that's the possible incubation period of the virus. And as a result, because you were originally told to self-isolate, you still have to continue your full 14-day period. So again, this is all in writing and hopefully is more clear. But again, the most important thing is, if in doubt, do not come to the rink, do not come to a Thunderbird event. Reach out to your safety, and the safety will be able to direct you in compliance with our policies. You can go to the next slide, Jody. So another very important policy, as you saw with Bruce's demonstration on what's going on in the rinks, we are allowed in the dressing rooms at UBC. I don't expect, with the City of Vancouver rinks, I don't think we're going to be allowed in dressing rooms in the City of Vancouver rinks. So really, UBC is the only place where we have a dressing room, but that still doesn't mean that our players can be unsupervised. So we are expecting that the 2D rules will apply in any team environment in any of these facilities, especially now that parents are not allowed into the facilities to be with the team. Our team staff are required to adhere to the 2D policy. The only other thing I can talk about, so this basically means 2 adults over age 19 or older must be supervising our players at all times. We expect that 1 designated adult supervisor must be a roster team official. Well, right now, the only people allowed in the rinks are going to be team officials. So that rule is a little, will only apply in phase 4. And of course, no one's going to be allowed into a dressing room without supervision. The only other thing we can again reiterate with you is that we do expect kids to have their phones with them. Obviously, it's not required that they do, but reality is kids are allowed to have their phones with them, but they are not allowed to take photographs or videos in the dressing room, and that will apply, in any dressing area. We really don't want anyone taking pictures of kids in those circumstances. So hopefully our team staff can enforce that in our dressing areas as well. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. It's kind of amazing to think that it was only a week and a day ago that we actually hit the ice. It certainly feels like it's been a little longer than that, but at the end of the day, it's been an awesome start. We've had a couple little hiccups, as we've already talked about, and they are fairly serious. So I'm hoping that everybody is listening to the fact that we really do need to follow the rules there. But our venues have been amazing partners so far. Both the Oval and UBC we've got great communication with them. I talk to them every day. It's been going really well, and both of them have really talked about the value of our volunteers that have been on site and making things so smooth. So our volunteer program, this was a new official program this year, but in reality, Thunderbirds have had people volunteering forever. And so this definitely has played a big role this year. As we've had 269 people already step up to help us get the 53 groups out on the ice in the last week. So to all of you that are stepping up and helping with the group manager and the HCSP and the contact tracing and just being able to jump on the ice for a couple of in each group, we can't even express how much of a help that's been. And you've been doing an amazing job. And I certainly hope that you continue to do that as we move into the next phase here. For those that haven't quite got into the groove just yet on the volunteer side, just a reminder on what our volunteer program is that it is actually in 2 parts. So once you get into your teams, everybody is expected to play some role, and your team manager will work with you to find something. Some people have a little bit more time to give, different skill sets. It doesn't need to just be the normal stuff. It doesn't need to be a hockey knowledge kind of a role. There's things that people can do across the board to help make this an unbelievable experience for the kids on your team. And then all of this that's happened already, we're not in teams yet. So this is what we consider as the association help. And so we have, what's happening in the first 2 weeks, what's going to happen during some balancing and the rep tryout program, as well as we're going to be running programs throughout the year that we're going to need people to help with as well. And so what the role is there is we've allocated 3 hours per player. So if your family has 2 players in Thunderbirds, then it's 6 hours. But if you have 3 players, we're not going to make you do more than the 6 hours, but you're certainly welcome to do that. So we certainly thank everybody that's doing it, and we look forward to having everybody part of that. Once you've done that 3 hours for the association and have started doing a role with your team, then you'll be eligible to receive that $75 fee back. And we'll start processing those as we get later into the fall and look at it around Christmas time again, and then at the end of the season. Okay, next slide. So we just wanted to take a really quick look and just a bit of a reminder for everybody. There's been so much talk about VIA Sport and who they are and what they're doing. So VIA Sport is the group that tells us how we can operate sport in BC. They are the ones that the BC government has tasked with this. And so everybody in sport, not just the people that are in organized sport, this is everybody in sport across BC has to follow these rules. And so we have 2 different phases that we can actually still operate programs in. So the phase 2 is the one that we've been in and what has happened all summer long, which is the physical distancing on the ice. And then phase 3 is what we are starting to move towards, where they've given us the criteria and the guidelines that we can follow in order to play games. Now, just because we can start playing games doesn't mean that that's all that we have to stay in. We can also then offer skill programs in the phase 2 programming with physical distance on the ice. So you're going to start seeing some different things come out around, here's your team, but also you do still have the ability to join in some skill stuff. And that's how we can do it. And it is certainly within the rules. The next one is something that we likely won't see this season. If we do, it would be outstanding. So we're not really planning on that, but if it gets there, it makes it, it's easier than anything. So we're going to look and focus on phase 2 and phase 3 programming. So when you hear that, this is what it refers to. Phase 2, it's physically distanced on the ice. Phase 3 means that we don't have to, we can actually do the contact in the games play. Okay. Which led into the Pacific Coast Return to Play plan, which we did go over in our town hall in August. So if you need a little bit more information on that, feel free to refer back there. But basically what we're doing right now is we are in level 1 for Pacific Coast up until Thanksgiving, where there's no exhibition games, there's no playing other associations. Every association is within themselves to do some skill development at the beginning, can do their balancing and their tryout process to be ready for what will come after Thanksgiving. And Pacific Coast had initially said that they were going to announce what was going to happen after Thanksgiving by September 30th. They actually announced it last night already. And so they have said that at this point in time, they have been given the go-ahead to go to level 3. So we are planning to be able to operate with 5 versus 5 on the ice. There will be some modified game rules and things like that, but that comes from BC Hockey and Hockey Canada. So all of our game officials are going to be getting certified under those new rules in the next couple of weeks to be ready for the gameplay afterwards. And we'll start to get some of those bullet points that we can pass on. But it's going to be things like the goalie creases are going to be much more protected. There's going to be less face-offs, things like that. So it's a little bit more of a fluid game. Playoffs we'll deal with once we get into the season, but for now, level 3 is where we're going to go after Thanksgiving. So how gameplay is going to work, cohorts, catchphrase of 2020. So your team that you're going to be assigned to is going to be your cohort all season. And so that means that during all your practices, you're going to be able to do those small area games, things like that, as long as there's no other player that's outside of your team on the ice with you. Your team is going to be assigned to a competition cohort by Pacific Coast for each round of games. And we'll get into the round of games in a minute, but essentially you're going to start off with a series of games, a bit of a break, and then you can change up the teams in that competition cohort for the next round. And in order to do that, we have to take a 2-week break in between, and that's going to be what makes it happen. So within that, there's going to be a 3-week period of time for each round of games where you are going to be scheduled to go with a home and home series with whoever the other 2 or 3 teams are within your cohort. And you do have the ability to schedule additional exhibition games against those same teams if you want to try and do a couple more games. Depends on ice availability and officials and all of that kind of thing as well. But they are allowing that to happen within Pacific Coast. But during the 2-week break that we do have to have between the rounds of games, you can't play anybody. You can continue practicing with your team. You can continue doing everything within your own little world in your practice, but you cannot do any exhibition games or anything like that. Okay. So sample team schedule to try and make this make some sense. Basically, round 1 is you have 3 weeks of games. So it's you against Team A, Team B, and Team C. You play your games in there. You've got your home and home, any exhibition games. You've got a 3-week, a distinct period that Pacific Coast is going to give you for a start and end. At that end date, you must take 2 weeks off where it's your team practice and skills only. And then you can go into round 2 for another 3 weeks of games. But now you're going to play Team D, E, and F. And then after that's done, you take 2 weeks off and you keep going. So they've got a schedule that's set up that allows 4 rounds of games. And, you know, it's pretty much maximizing us all the way up to spring break, which is the end of the year. That 4th round could potentially be playoffs if they move to that. So they do have the ability to do that. But again, they'll make that decision later in the season. So field of play, this has been the big one. So right now, when phase 3 came out from Via Sport, they said that what they deemed as field of play, where the phase 3 programming with contact was going to be allowed, was only the ice surface. And so our player benches, where everybody waits to be able to get onto the ice, are not part of the field of play. And so anything that's not part of field of play is where physical distancing or masks is required. Now, the challenge for most venues is that we don't have enough space to be able to line the kids up along the glass. Some of our venues have built-in dress, like the benches are right there. The carousel, for example, it's built into the stands. You can't expand that. We also have places like Hillcrest where they're actually not using the dressing rooms, as been talked about. So they've built out dressing areas that go right up to the bench, which means that we can't actually then stand in that area. So the only option is to wear masks. And so we have put that out. We waited as long as we felt we could, because honestly, this has been a conversation that has been happening at, pretty much on a daily basis with various different people. And you all received a couple emails from me over the last couple days. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I kind of covered most of it there. But really, at the end of the day, the recommendation that's come down is for the neck gaiter mask that can be pulled up. In that middle picture, you'll actually see a bunch of hockey players wearing that. This is actually we're starting to see this be mandated during play in some areas, and we're hoping that we're actually going to go the other way as opposed to going that way. But it is something that is being seen in a lot of different sports and different areas. So it's while it sounds like something that's kind of coming out of the blue, it really isn't. And so we just simply have to follow the rules in order to be able to be out there. And this is one of the ones that is currently there. So, sorry, the pictures are just covering a little bit there, so I'm just trying to figure out what was back there. But one of the things that did come out was, I know that there's some concern over the gaiters and things like that. There's lots of research out there. If it is a thin one, you can double it over, and that helps for sure. It brings it basically back into a double layer mask. Masks are masks, whether it's the over the ear or if it's the neck gaiter. You do need to make sure that you are getting proper masks for different various things in life these days. So this is just another one to add to the list. We have talked extensively to the local stores today. So both Sports Exchange and Cyclone Taylor are setting up pre-order opportunities for the CCM mask that's coming out that can actually fit within any cage or any kind of bubble mask. The Bauer one is specifically for their helmet, but if you have one of those, Cyclone Taylor is working on getting some pre-orders for that as well. They're sending me the information, and I'll send that out to everybody when they get me how they want to proceed with that. But they are definitely wanting to help us be able to provide that to anybody that's interested. Those will be able to replace an actual physical mask. Now, I've had lots of suggestions today. One of them was, if we get a gator and we can pull it over our cage, does that work? So I've actually put that question up to see if it does, because that could actually be a lot easier than getting it under. So we are looking at various different ideas. You know, if there's anybody out there that can sew, I personally think a pillowcase over the head, but when you get to the bench might work too. But it's just one of those things where we have to kind of make sure that we're following the guidelines and making sure that we're able to be out there. Okay, next. The other thing that Via Sport has been talking about a lot, when they came out with the phase 3 guidelines, they started talking about having a limit of 1 cohort per sport, but you could play in any number of sports. And so it's been an ongoing conversation. And so what they've kind of come back with is that it really is up to the parents. And what they want to make sure that people understand is that it's safest to make sure that you're not going out and doing 17 different sports and a variety of different things in each sport, that you look at what actually makes some sense and limit things within your own family. But we don't want to tell you what you're going to do. Every child has their favorites. Every child has what they want to do. We don't want to take that away. Within Thunderbirds, we will have our teams be the assigned cohorts, and any other programming that we do will be done in phase 2. And then the final one there is that we do ask that parents do follow the recommendations. And if you are coming from another sport or another hockey activity coming into a T-Bird one, just make sure that you are following the hygiene protocols that are out there. You know, it's just common sense, and we ask that people just apply that to their daily life, like we all are having to do pretty much every day of what's going on right now. Okay, so that's going to take us to the end of this. Before we throw it to the breakout rooms, I just want to give a quick opportunity to see if there's any pressing questions on sportsmanship in the stands and things like that. If you do, you can just kind of throw your hand up, or you can throw it into the chat. All right. So we do have a few people that are going to end up staying back in the main room here, just because we didn't have the